Marvel lovers and movie lovers in general, you saw the title, which means today I am reviewing Ant-Man and the Wasp, so let's do this. Ant-Man and the Wasp is a 2018 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics characters. It is a sequel to 2015's Ant-Man and the 20th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Directed by Peyton Reed and written by Chris McKenna, Eric Summers, Paul Rudd, Andrew Barra, and Gabrielle Ferrari, it sees Ant-Man and the Wasp working together with Hank Pym to retrieve Janet Van Dyne from the quantum realm. I had a great deal of fun with this movie, but it was emotional in ways I didn't expect. When the movie started, I already began crying, and what I realize now is that this movie begins and ends in a very human and very real place, which has caused me to have a newfound love and respect for the Ant-Man movies. The Ant-Man movies are entirely different from the rest of the movies in the MCU, where they focus more on the inner conflicts of good and evil and crazy superhero fights that sometimes involve some really awesome superpowers. Ant-Man, at its core, focuses on a very domestic storyline with its characters. For me, these movies are less about people becoming big and small in rapid speed, which is exceptionally done and equally entertaining. It's about family and the bonds we have, such as a parent and a child, specifically a father and a daughter. In the first film, Scott is someone who is trying to be a good father and a role model to his daughter, and Hank is someone trying to repair the relationship with his daughter Hope that became fractured when they lost her mother. In this movie, Scott is still trying to figure out how to be a good dad, and Hope and Hank are finally in sync and working together like father and daughter to save someone they both love. The growth in our title leads is both present but different. Scott is still growing at an emotional level where he finds himself constantly screwing up no matter how hard he tries to do the right thing, so he needs to find balance. Hope was someone who had those strengths but was held back by her dad. He kept the training wheels on her because he was afraid to lose her, and no matter how much she would say, "Dad, I'm ready," he wasn't ready. But now he realizes he needs to trust her, and now he does, and she has proven to be exceptional in every way. So during this movie, you get to see him beaming with a father's pride as he watches just how exceptional she is. All of this is very emotional for me. My dad left me when I was 5. He was not a good father or a good man, and he left me messed up in a lot of ways. So when I watch a film where I see a father who is so loving and devoted and proud when it comes to their child, it makes me incredibly happy but also incredibly sad because I see what I missed out on. Scott's daughter is the epitome of innocence. She doesn't see someone failing, she just sees someone trying. She helps him to see the good in himself when he can't, and I love that. And on top of that, we see that while he's divorced, he has a great relationship with his ex and her current spouse, who are both so supportive and protective of him, and it is truly one big family. It might not be traditional, but it's functional and it's beautiful. I think it's the most normal storyline you will ever see depicted in a Marvel movie, and for me, it truly separates it from all the other movies in the franchise. So much about this movie is so on point. The editing is some of the most impressive and seamless editing I have ever seen. The way the size changes of objects and characters along with stunts and choreography and all forms of effects work so well together is just amazing to watch. I tried to look for a flaw, but I couldn't see one. The effects are amazing, but again, that editing just brings everything together, and I feel like in this movie, the editing truly emphasizes all those other things in a brilliant way. I love getting to see the components of filmmaking working so well together. Sometimes things feel separate or detached, like each other is trying to outdo the other, but in this I feel everything is quite complementary. I might even go as far as to call it harmonious. I love Paul Rudd's depiction of Scott Lang. I love the humor he brings to the movie, which is very observational based. Sometimes it can let a scene down just a tad when you realize it is getting a bit repetitive, but then sometimes the dialogue is so comical it makes up for it. I feel like Scott is the G-rated version of Deadpool. They both have that humor written into them that is designed to poke fun at traditional superhero tropes and call things out for being formulaic. It's just Scott does it without the fourth wall breaks and without vulgarity and violence, so it's open to a wider audience. The standout of the movie, however, definitely is Evangeline Lilly. Her performance of the Wasp was everything I could want in a female superhero and more. She is strong, kicks ass, confident, but still has enough insecurities to keep her human instead of robotic. Her motivations are all very emotional based, so that gives her heart, and at the end of the day, Evangeline performs her to perfection and knows how to steal the show in all the best ways. I love that this installment gives us more background on Hank and things from his past, and while at first I was a bit iffy about some of our new characters, I ultimately appreciated them. Ghost, played by John-Kamen, I loved because she is not the typical villain who is evil for superficial reasons. At the end of the day, she isn't evil at all. She is someone who has had a hard life, is in pain, and has been used and abused, and is just trying to find a way to end her pain. While she acts immoral, she's not evil. She's just driven by something that is beyond the confines of morality, which makes her a complex character, and therefore I appreciate her. Lawrence Fishburne plays Bill Foster, and he is complex too, but not to the same level as Ghost. He is still very moral at his core and is not at the point where he is willing to sacrifice his morals, even for a good cause. He is still trying to work within the lines, even though he has moments where he gets to that line in trying to do something ultimately good, he still never crosses that line. The only thing I truly 100% did not like about this movie was Sonny Birch, played by Walton Goggins, and his henchman. He was an underwhelming villain who contributed very little. The inclusion of this character I felt was more distracting to the overall plot rather than complementary. Every time he was there, it pulled focus in the wrong direction. It made moments feel chaotic. His first appearance I was okay with, it fits into the story, but the fact he just keeps popping up was honestly annoying and was getting in the way of what was important in terms of the story. Luis is back along with his buddies, and while they do have some good moments and did a couple times make me laugh, a lot of the other times it just felt like too much and that we were moving away from what mattered. When these characters came along, it felt like too much was going on, and I just don't feel we needed that. I was happy to have them, just not to this degree, or at least not used in this specific way. Small complaints I had that impact my feelings about the movie in no way whatsoever, but I feel like mentioning anyway, was how I kept focusing on the fact our two main women seemed to not know how to use a brush. Every time I saw them, their hair just looked so unkempt, like they hadn't washed it in a few days and they lost their brush. It is so irrelevant for me to say it, I just couldn't stop focusing on it. However, I decided to give Ghost a pass because I realized when you think about her condition, I imagine baths or showers or brushing one's hair are not the easiest of tasks, so she's got an excuse. Another thing, and I don't feel it's a spoiler, but I will still say if you haven't seen the poster or trailers, then skip to here. I love Michelle Pfeiffer and I loved her being cast as Janet Van Dyne, but when we finally see her in the quantum realm, my first thought was, wow, they have robes and makeup in this realm? Seriously, where did she get the robe from? I was having Fantastic Four the remake flashbacks to when Doctor Doom returns and he's got that green robe and you're just like, you were stranded on some random planet with no civilization. Where the fuck did you get that? And then with the makeup, the eyeshadow and mascara, I just couldn't help but think either you found makeup or that shit has stayed on your face for 30 years, in which case I need to know the brand name because that's impressive. These are such minute things that are not important to mention, but they kind of made me laugh, so I felt like mentioning them. I will also mention I did bust a gut laughing during one particular scene. I won't say what it was. I will just say the word seagulls and leave it at that. That scene was hilarious. A lot of moments during this movie where you're seeing how amazing Hank's technology is, I kept thinking, it's a good thing he left S.H.I.E.L.D. before Hydra really took over, because then things would have been even more screwed than normal. Just imagine Hydra getting that technology. I love how this movie links up and references not only Ant-Man and Civil War and Infinity War, but the elements from the universe itself. I love that the timeline in this movie is very clear cut. You don't have to fight to figure out where in the timeline this takes place, so that's great. There are 2 post-credit scenes. The first I would encourage everyone to stay for. The second is more just a fun bonus. It is not a necessary watch, so don't feel upset if you miss it. You can wait till the DVD. Marvel's producers told us that Ant-Man and the Wasp would explain to audiences why he wasn't in Infinity War, which it does, but we already got that answer in Infinity War when a character mentions him being under house arrest. But they also mentioned how this would give indication as to how he works into the next Avengers movie, and unless I'm a moron, I don't believe it did that at all. But this scene was exactly what I was expecting and hoping for, so I enjoyed it. Ultimately, I absolutely loved this movie. I loved our characters, the story, I love the emotional depth it has. The comedy was pretty good, the music was great, but that editing and special effects were everything. A few minor cons, but for me, they don't detract from the body of work as a whole. Thank you once again for joining me for another review. Be sure to like this video and subscribe if not already. Until next time, bye.
Hit it!